on the recording, so we'll get started. So good evening. Thank you for taking the time to log on after a busy day and a dark evening. Always a bit of a shock to the system when we've done the clocks dark outside. So I am Natasha Roberts, Deputy at MV, and I have been overseeing our careers programme for quite a few years now. I do believe that we have got a really good careers programme. We're very excited to start to support your young people in year 12. As I've said to them today, they've only been with us 7 weeks. But it does go very quickly, and career support is absolutely crucial at this last stage of their education before they go into adulthood. Lots of choices to be made, lots of decisions, and I think the key thing that students need to realise, that we understand as adults, is there is no set pathway from now onwards. It's been school, A-levels. Sometimes it can feel like the traditional route is then university, but that is certainly not the only choice available. So I just want to outline this evening the careers programme support that we are going to offer, which has started today. I've just got a slide up there to show you just some of the organisations that I work very closely with that I'll be introducing you to. I mean, we're on Teams for a lot of our support for young people. You'll see the Teams logo up there, but I'll also, before they leave MV, be getting them to set up a LinkedIn profile. We work very closely with SpringPod, which is an organisation which launched over lockdown, which does a lot of virtual careers experiences and work experiences, and of course Unifrog's there in the middle, plus lots of national organisations that I use to make sure that we're meeting our statutory guidelines for careers. And another really important part of our careers programme is these faces. These are students, just a very small selection that you may have seen if you've been into college and seen all our posters at the entrance. These are our alumni. So these are students who come back and help, and they are an absolute asset to me. I don't believe that our career support would be as strong without them. So just a few I'll mention here are helping me next week. So there's Sam Dryle, the larger pictures I'm mentioning in the middle there. He is an architect and landscape architecture master's students at the University of Sheffield, and on Monday he will be joining us through Teams to run an architecture workshop as part of our Green Careers Week, which year 12 students have had advertised to them today. They can sign up to. Then bottom left, as we look at the screen, is another Sam. He works for Blore Homes, and he is going to be coming in and talking to business economics students and any other students that are interested in construction and how sustainability is really important there. And above him there is actually not the Wright Coburn brother, but his brother is going to, so Joe Coburn is actually works for Bank of America, and he's going to come in via Teams and talk about green investments. But there's a whole host of students there. I've got doctors, accountants, cybersecurity, economists, Alberto there who works for the marketing team at Disney, all sorts of different young people that represent so many different career pathways. And your son or daughter will get to meet some of them during their time at MV, and even maybe get the opportunity to be mentored by some of them. So I'll tell you about a little bit about that this evening. So really what we're focusing on is what will life be like after MV. It's always been very traditional that most of our students go on to university. So when I started doing this sort of just over 10 years ago, we were at about 95%, but I'll show you some statistics in a second to see how that has dropped down to about 75% who go off to university. The government have brought online some amazing apprenticeship levy and support in the last 10 years, and that has grown from fields like engineering and accountancy across many, many different career paths. And then since our lockdown, the pandemic, we've seen a real growth in young people wanting to take a gap year after they complete their A levels and their BTEC qualifications, because they really just don't feel ready to be making such an important decision about what their next steps will be. So we offer a lot of gap year support. I've had a gap year student online with me today who's doing a delayed university application. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. And I totally think for many young people, that's the right thing to consider. These are our students who left us last summer. 62% of them are at university as we speak, as freshers. Very pleased that nearly 90% of them got into their first choice uni. 12%, so that kind of takes us up to the 75%, have applied to university, but they have got their place safely in the bank and they're off on their gap years. Many are saving money to go travelling. That's very much a favoured thing, that they want to go off to Southeast Asia, seems to be the destination, and maybe Australia, New Zealand, but other places as well, quite a lot doing things in Europe. But they just want that little bit of time before they actually continue with their education. 25% of our students, which is a good national score, are going on to what's considered to be the top UK universities. That's judged by Sutton Trust. And you might be familiar with the phrase Russell Group universities, or if you're more of my generation, Red Brick universities, we used to call them, and they sit within those top 30. But there are other unis in there as well, like Bath, Leicester, Loughborough, Lancaster, St Andrews. There are some really, really good unis that aren't actually classed as Russell One. So what are the remaining 26% doing? Well, some have gone off to apprenticeships. So I've got a young man who's down at Dyson doing the apprenticeship there. I've got a student who has gone off to Amazon to do a degree apprenticeship. Students who have gone off to engineering level 4, level 5 apprenticeships. Students who are currently still applying for their apprenticeships, because that window doesn't necessarily get sorted for September. It's like the job market, it can happen at any time. But a large number would have gone to university in the past and now doing apprenticeships. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And during the course of this academic year, I will focus on apprenticeships, and you'll see what happens in the spring term. Many find jobs. You know, that traditional route of going into employment. That doesn't necessarily mean they're gaining a degree at the same time or higher qualifications than their A levels. So I have students that have gone into employment, training to be in social services. A young man today has emailed me to say that he's secured a job that he's hopefully going to be going into, that's a sustainability job. It's not an apprenticeship, it's just straight into work. That also includes students going into the forces, so some are still applying to do that. And then FE colleges, some students, you are still entitled to funding after MV to do, if you haven't completed MV by the time you are 19. So if you're going to have your 19th birthday the year after you leave MV, you can still get some funding to do a different course at an FE college. And then, of course, students are on their gap years and they haven't got something in place. So they are, like I've just said, doing a delayed university application because they didn't really know what they wanted to do while they were with us, or they are applying for apprenticeships now. So many will be continuing with their part-time jobs and have upped their hours while they're looking at what they really, really want to do. And I do not think that is a bad thing. I think there's a real concern that the person they were sitting next to in assembly today, they thought had got it all sorted and knew what they wanted to do, whereas they had no idea. That is the norm. And if it takes a little bit longer, then we are here to support a further year after they leave MV, and longer via email. It's just obviously our resources do get stretched. So universities, I just thought I'd show you some of the most popular universities that MV students go off to. I've had Sheffield Uni in today talking to them. Sheffield is one of the top Russell Group unis that our students really like, alongside Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester, Nottingham, Birmingham. They're really, really popular ones, the top universities in the area. Nottingham Trent is an incredibly good university on our doorstep, as is DMU. So many students, Coventry, students like those. And then it's more expensive to move down south, but students do go to London. Obviously, we have students that apply for Oxbridge every year, and then some will even go right down to the south coast. So I've got students often applying to Exeter, Falmouth for the art course, and off into Wales. So it's a real broad opportunity. And when you come into MV Next, have a look at the map at the top of the stairs, and I actually list all the destinations and where students have gone. So I thought I'd also show you the apprenticeship destinations. I mentioned Dyson. I don't think that Amazon's up there. But for example, a year 13 student today has come to me to say she's waiting for the window to open for Freeth Solicitors, which is a massive law firm in Nottingham. Cooper Parry is one of the top accountancy firms. I've got about 4 or 5 former students who work out at their headquarters near East Midlands Airport. All sorts of different organisations. Mondelez, previously known as Cadbury, they have some amazing business, marketing, creative, engineering apprenticeships. But these are tricky. These are a difficult process to get into. So we really do want students to start thinking seriously about how they're going to stand out from the crowd. To get a degree apprenticeship is as difficult as getting a job outside of university, after university. The process is as rigorous as a graduate job. There are many, many stages to the assessment centre, but we've got a track record of really being able to help students get to these top companies. And then there are smaller companies. I put some of the biggies up there, but there are smaller companies on our doorstep. So, for example, there's an amazing company, Harlexton engineering firm, where we'll take engineers each year for us. It's quite interesting, this higher and degree apprenticeship route. It really is becoming popular. And I just thought these statistics were quite interesting. Typically, these students do stay in their programme. They do feel supported. There is a higher dropout rate of university than 90%. I think the parent ones are interesting. I think that as soon as you as parents start researching, you will believe that they have got a better chance of employment after doing an apprenticeship. And there is some damning statistics in the news at the minute at how tricky the graduate market is. But that's mainly because students, while they've been at university, have not had placements, have not had internships, or have not had part-time jobs. So Meg today from Sheffield Uni talked very importantly about transferable skills, and you will see that's a really important part of our careers programme. So as long as young people are making sure they're becoming employable while they're at university, there's no reason why the scare stories in the media should be true for them. I thought this is one of my favourite graphics, to be honest. I always put it up. I thought this was a nice comparison. So what do we mean by all these different terms? I mean, have a glance over that while I'm talking. So students will typically, and this is me coming back to skills really, students will typically go to university and think, right, university, 3 years, more study, then I'm going to start to get a job. That is where it becomes really tricky. But if students think about what they're going to be doing at university, then suddenly getting the placements, getting the internships, is going to become really, really important. That sandwich degree, that's a phrase that you may be familiar with if you went to university yourself. I actually did a sandwich degree back in the early 90s. They were quite a new thing in those days, where you will do 4 years, but typically the 3rd year will be out in industry. Many of our MV students who do that do secure employment by the company that they did their sandwich year with, that they did their industrial placement with. So I really recommend students looking at if the degree has an industrial placement year, looking at whether the university gives actually any support and links to companies. Sheffield University today, it sounds like I'm doing a plug for Sheffield, but it's just one of our link unis. Actually, they have some companies that do direct recruitment from Sheffield University. And I know that that happens up and down the country, that they have these particular organisations that link with them. So they will offer placements as well. But over on the left-hand side of that, you've got your degree apprenticeship. So you can see there that the funding is paid for by the employer and the government, that they do take longer. They will take usually 5 years to complete that, which obviously is longer because you've got the 4 years of university. And that will go up to level 7, which is a master's. A lot of our students go on to higher apprenticeship, so their A levels are level 3. The higher apprenticeship can be level 4, and it can go on to a level 5, and it can progress up to the level 7. Foundation degrees, very popular for our students. If they don't quite get the grades that they want to do, they can do a foundation degree and then move on to an undergraduate degree or move into work after that. So that will be level 5. You might be familiar in the past with the phrase HND, so that gives them a higher national diploma. That is very popular because a lot of them will have workplace learning. You'll see that in that table there. And then right at the very far end are the absolute gold dust university degrees, where a company will sponsor you for the whole time. There aren't an awful lot out there, but each year I do get 1 or 2 students that manage to find those. They often tend to be in finance or law. So I've mentioned focusing on transferable skills. If you work in industry, you're probably familiar with this already, but people are judged on their KSBs when they're in their apprenticeships, and there's a big drive for us in schools to get students to start to think about how important it is to have not just knowledge but also skills and appropriate behaviours. So I've just jotted that up really as a nice graphic, as the sort of things that the world of work are looking for. Project management comes up. That's quite a new one, that students can actually manage a project, take a lead, meet a deadline, follow a timeline, etc. And there's other things there that you'll be familiar with that we really want to push. So the main focus this evening, the sort of that I'll spend the next half hour on, is going through the timeline of what we're going to do. So I've kind of given you a bit of an introduction as to what we think is important, a bit of a taste of the things we'll cover. But I'm actually going to go through what we'll do term by term. So the autumn term 2025, we're in that now, literally have launched the careers programme today, and that's with students hearing from Sheffield Uni, having the chance to speak to their first university, signing up with me if they think they might be interested in some of those really competitive early application courses. So this early identification for medicine, veterinary medicine, dentistry, or if they think they might want to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, because those students I do want to start working with really, really soon to make sure that they realise what they've got to do to stand out from the crowd. Tonight, obviously, I've got listed there the parents' information, and I've got a code for you, VADN capitals, followed by the word parent, no spaces, where you can create your own Unifrog account. So I'll tell you more about Unifrog during the course of this talk. Students are going to have the opportunity to start tailoring their Teams account to different careers now. So even though we do a careers bulletin for students and we update that quite regularly, but at least once a week. They can also, so for example, I've encouraged those that are interested in medicine to join the MV MedSoc, but there's going to be veterinary med channels, healthcare, one specifically for apprenticeships, and I'll start to advertise them for them, and they need to really make sure they're keeping up to date with Teams. It gives them an idea of how companies and universities use platforms like Teams as well. As I've said, next week we're going to have some alumni speakers. I've actually got 8 alumni speakers coming into different classes. If their subjects kind of lend themselves toward green careers, that's going to be biology, geography, engineering, physics, maths, economics, business, product design, computer science. So if they do those sorts of subjects, they're going to meet some alumni either in textiles as well. They're going to meet alumni either in person or via Teams. I'm going to be talking and starting to introduce them to a lot about how degree apprenticeships have grown. And I am going to launch before Christmas our work experience, which will be in June 2026. I'll tell you a little bit about that this evening. So that's sort of before Christmas. The big thing that we've done is show them this platform UniFrog. We do have to pay for this, and it's worth absolutely every penny of our budget. And I've actually been working with UniFrog for quite a few years now, and I'm one of their champion teachers for the UK. So it means that I get quite a lot of early input into the platform, and it means that I've also encouraged all of our Nova schools to get involved. I also work quite closely with John Fernley, who use UniFrog as well. So yeah, it's amazing. I can't say any more of that. In some ways, it's unfortunate that it's called UniFrog. The uni doesn't mean just for university. It actually means universal. And it's a platform that was set up by a former teacher who's a Cambridge graduate, Alex Kelly. And when he started teaching after finishing university, he saw this massive gap in the market for there to be a platform where students could just go on and get all the information in one place rather than having to go into hundreds of different websites. And he's done an amazing job. It updates every 24 hours with live information. So for example, the apprenticeships that are coming out, they go live and it's all linked. There isn't an app. It's much better. I think the way that they link, it's not through an app, it's through their website, but you can have a parent account on it. And I think that's quite important to do as a parent. So I will share this in the chat so that you can use it, but the link is unifrog.org and you can easily find the parent login. And then I've set it up. I've already linked you so that you can get an MV linked account, and that's the code that you will need to use. But I will put my email address up at the end as well, and if you've got any problems, just let me know. So students are going to start to build their profile on UniFrog. I will be sending out the presentation, and there is a recording, so yeah, you'll get all of that followed up. So yes, no problem. Do feel free, by the way, to put anything in the chat while I'm talking. So thank you for that. I will make sure that I respond as I go. So students are going to build their profile. What they might have started doing even today is building their personality profile. And you may be familiar with something called the Myers-Briggs 16 personalities. UniFrog have combined with them, and they have kind of called them different frogs, but they've worked very closely with Myers-Briggs, and students then, when they build their profile and they get their 4 letters, it will start to link different career profiles they should look at and different characteristics, and it'll take them to different parts of the platform. So they might have done their interests, and that shows again what sort of careers might suit them for their interests. They might have done their work environments. They're really, really good quizzes that start to help students do research. Some students will be logging on knowing that there's a career they're interested in, and they might want to jump straight into the careers library, the subject libraries. Others will take more time to do the research. But I'm not going to go through every tile there, But when you get your parent account, have a good old nose as what's available. What I think is really interesting is they're putting up webinars that students can join, and they will start to do that so that they will be able to, I don't know, maybe do a webinar delivered by a university on a particular course, or a webinar on, are you unsure what you want to do after your A levels? So they're really, really good, and it takes you live into those webinars from your Unifrog account. You'll notice the placement tool there. I will come back to that and send out information to you after Christmas. But basically, the way that students set up their work placements for our work experience in June is all done through Unifrog. So once they've sort of built their profile, they can then start doing some really good research. And as I've said, every apprenticeship that is out there and live is listed, and it'll take them to the websites for those. But also every university that's offering courses and all the different tariffs, the grade requirements, the points requirements, they are on there. And then that recording what you've done, I ask them to start to build their own profile in this part as well, with recording the skills they're developing while they're at MV or in their part-time jobs or their sports, their music, their extracurricular that they do. And what we will do for them is start to build their profile on how they're interacting with their careers planning. So I do that part, that interaction box. Mrs. Parks, who works with me on careers, and students will really get to know her and benefit from her help. Her and I will do the interactions. So that's something they might move on to sort of in late November, December. So by Christmas, I've actually set them some targets of what they need to do on their Unifrog, and I've set them an assignment on Teams today. So do ask them about that if they've read their assignment. And it says things like they should have recorded at least 3 skill areas, their activities that they do in their own time, and reach a percentage on their Unifrog wheel. That will all make sense when you log on to yours. The spring term is when it gets busy. And I know they've only done 1 term at MV, and it seems so full on. And, you know, my own sons have been through MV, so I can, and in fact, we went into lockdown at this point, and I can see it from a parent point of view that it can be so tricky when they know what they want to do. I had one who knew what he wanted to do since year 10, and one who is already working and still doesn't know what he wants to do, but that's often the case, isn't it? So it can be difficult. So all these things, I'm not going to read through all of them, but all these things are on offer at MV. The biggie there is we will host our own careers fair in March, and that's very exciting. Usually get sort of 40 to 50 stands, universities, apprenticeship providers, local employers, all sorts of different organisations. The other thing that we will do is we will do Oxbridge visits for those students that are really ambitious. Mrs. Parks will offer careers meetings, so for all of our students, they can start booking in with her. That's once we've sort of sent off the UCAS for year 13. And the big thing that they will do is they will be organising their work experience. So the very last bullet point there says finalise their work experience plans for June. So that is something that I am going to talk more about shortly. All sorts of different things that we've got exciting going on there. So just to go back to Unifrog, probably in the spring term, students will start to draw up some shortlists. And I just wanted to show you, I know it's not that clear on the screen, but you can have a little look at this when you go on, that what students can do is they can very cleverly put some filters on. So this is a student that's interested in doing an education degree, primary education. This is just a search, a pretend search. They're willing to travel 200 miles. They would like to have a full degree rather than doing it part-time or a foundation, but they are interested in all sorts of universities. And then what they ask you to do when you first log in is put typically what grades you are aiming to achieve in your A levels, and then it will show them what would be a solid choice, what is aspirational, and what would be absolutely safe. So this student probably put in ABB, I would imagine. or probably 3Bs actually by that primary one. So you can see there you've got Cambridge, UCL, Durham, and those are kind of sitting within your top 30. And then the solid universities, UEA is an excellent university there. University of York, actually in the middle, is Russell Group. And then ones that are safer, Brunel in West London. That's quite a low tariff for them, actually. You've got on that right hand side Birmingham City. I have students that go there. That's a very good university. And they can start to, where it's highlighted burgundy there, you click on it and it'll take you into those university profiles, and then you can click to go into those actual websites as well. And then you can do the same for apprenticeships. And instead of it showing the safe and the aspirational spectrum, it'll show the different levels. So the higher school leaver programs, that basically means the SLPs, that means the degree level. Advanced, now they are actually level 3, the same as their A levels, but when you go into an apprenticeship, your skills aren't there, so you often have to go down to level 3 again to build up the skills, especially with things like engineering. And then the intermediate ones they should really avoid, because they would be the ones you would do just straight from your GCSEs, really. So they go down to level 2. I wouldn't expect an MV student to do those. It always fascinates me how some of our students don't know where different cities are in the UK. So when I actually say places like, I mean, okay, somewhere like Falmouth, they might not know where it is. But even when I sort of say, oh, right, okay, so interested in Edinburgh, do you know how far away that is? And just to be aware, sort of what the university journey would be like, and to think about what travelling home at weekends would be like. Just to get an idea, really. I think it is something that as a family you do have to consider. Probably about 20% of our students do stay living at home. That's become quite a national trend. We are incredibly fortunate in Melton area that you have got really good universities on our doorstep. And even though Trent and DMU and Lincoln don't fall in the top 30, they are classed as some of the best universities in the country for the areas that they specialise in. So, for example, DMU has an absolutely outstanding cybersecurity course, and students, A-level students, choose to come to that over maybe some of the top, and it's because they have placement years for places like GCHQ and all sorts of different organisations. Same for Lincoln, has got some really, really good engineering courses. They've got really good progression into masters. I've had students that have gone off onto there. So we do understand, especially with the financial pressures that we face, that students might want to live closer to home. And I can give you support and advice with how that works. I don't think they miss out as much as they would have done on the university life, because more students are travelling in. So yeah, it's really interesting. Um, so what I am going to, I'm just going to have a look at that question actually that pinged up. Let me have a little read of that. So pleased that you like the look of Unifrog. Yeah, that is quite funny, isn't it? Can we also, parents, use it for our own careers advice? Yes, you could. You absolutely could, because you can do it as a pretend person. So yeah, it fascinates me how parents do. It's quite funny when parents come on open evening to MV, they always say, oh, I wish I was coming to do my A levels again and things like that. So yes, you can. Yeah, by all means, take advantage of it. Right, so let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen in this spring term still. So there is a big drive by the government that every student, by the time they get to the age of 18, should have had at least 2 weeks worth of work experience. But this starts all the way from Key Stage 3. And it doesn't mean, work experience does not mean going into an organisation and working for 2 solid weeks. It means experience of a workplace, but the experience of what working would be like. So, for example, I know that schools are running some amazing in-college projects where companies are coming in and setting challenges, and their experience of work is how they would run that project, meet a deadline, work with others. So I think the word work experience can be really misleading. Experiencing working is, I don't know what else you could call it, but that's what it's supposed to be. Now, by the time they come to us, they should have had some work experience. I'm not sure whether they have or not. You've all come from different schools. But what we want to do is give 3 days in June where we stop our timetable. We actually stop it for the whole week because we have other things going on that week. But we stop the timetable and we really encourage students to find a work placement where they go into an organisation. So that's what I'm going to call an in-person placement. Now, because we've got those 3 dedicated days, I do understand that they might say, well, yes, I found a placement, but the company won't take me on those days. But they will take me on different days, for example, in the summer holidays or in the half term. I don't ideally, unless they're doing medicine or vet med, ideally want them to miss any more college by going on different days. But I do let sort of 4 or 5 students a year. So, for example, a young lady today has just secured an amazing placement with a law firm, and she's going to take 2 days off in February before we go on half term and then do the rest of the week there. And obviously, I'll authorise things like that. So, you know, case by case, we look at what's relevant. But if they can't find it on those 3 days, I will actually run company projects in college. So last year I had Nottinghamshire Police run 3 challenge days. I had a journalist from Global Radio. These are all former students. I had a medic come in, although the medics do have to get work experience, but they all got it in the summer, in their summer holidays. And what else did I have? Racking my brains now. Oh yes, and then we also had a cyber project to do as well, which was really good for the IT students. So let me just take you through the steps. You might even want to start thinking about this now. So the idea is to find an organisation who would be willing to take, and we do have to use our own networks here, but I do have a database as well who have taken students before, but who would be willing to take that young person. Now, the idea is that the student finds it themselves. Now, that already makes them stand out from the crowd, that they had the initiative to contact organisations. They could write a good CV and an email to get a placement, that they could present themselves professionally to be able to say what they wanted to get out of it. So that already is a tick that they really stand out from the crowd, whether it's applications for apprenticeships or university personal statements. Then what they do is they put their details of the agreed placement into Unifrog. Now, what Unifrog will automatically do is trigger a link to you as a parent to then approve it. And then when you've approved it, it will be sent to the employer to agree that they are happy with it. And then they complete for us a risk assessment, any safeguarding requirements they have to agree to, and most importantly, they have to prove that they've got their employer's liability insurance. So I'm going to say immediately, and I do put this information out, that sole traders who don't have to legally have that, we ask them to have it, otherwise we say no. And that is because we have to follow the national restrictions that we're under, that employers' liability insurance covers work experience students. So even though when you employ under, or if you're, even if you're under, you can be exempt if it's a family member as well, but that is our standards MV that we ask for. So sometimes it's just easier to avoid sole traders, unless you know that a sole trader would be willing to pay for a week's worth of employer liability insurance, and you can just get it for those couple of days when they're going to be there. They log in to Unifrog from the link they get through the email, and they upload those documents. And then what happens is Rosie Parks approves it. So she goes through all of it and it gets approved. And they see on their Unifrog it go green. With each stage, it will go green. The sooner they've done that, the sooner they're set up. And like I say, if they're really struggling, and you don't feel that as a family you've got that sort of network of people you can contact, and it can be your own workplace, it can be where you work or where family members work, then what you're able to do is actually link into us and see what you've got. So I think I might have just answered your question there, Adam. So yes, right, so you've put, am I able to arrange a 3-day work placement with my employer for my daughter? She would need to set it up herself with the HR independent of me. It would be, I mean, this is about, let's use common sense. If you work in an organisation and you've got that contact, then you could give them the heads up and see if it's okay. And then it would be nice for her to send that email and say, thank you for agreeing to take me on work experience. I'm going to just confirm that this is what I would like to get out of the work experience. And then she would put in your email address, that email address, and then she could carry it on without you. Yes, but of course, I would expect that if you work in an organisation, or it might be that you're now thinking, right, well, I work in a great organisation that will take some students, but I actually know that my son or daughter isn't interested at all in my engineering firm that I work for or the law company I work for. So what I'm going to say immediately is, if you think that, or you might even have a company yourself that you can offer something to. But if you think that you've got some connections that you could pass to another MV student, I'm going to absolutely snap your hand off for that. Now, what I'm also going to encourage them all to do is a virtual work experience, at least one. And they can do, I really encourage them to do that in their own time. But if they really can't find something to fit those 3 days in June, they can do their virtual work experience through SpringPod. Now, this is not just a case of logging on and doing a few little videos and answering some questions. These are run by amazing companies. I had 3 girls who did the Vodafone one 2 years ago, and when they completed all the projects for Vodafone, they actually got invited down to the head office and offered a work placement in person because they'd done so well on their SpringPod one. I've got universities telling me, and Sheffield, Meg said it as well today, how impressed they are when students talk about what they have done through their SpringPod account. I mean, let's face it, a lot of our current students are going to do remote working in the future, and SpringPod gives them the taste of that. It's not ideal. I don't think, in my own opinion, for a youngster to be sat at home working all the time. But we know that that's how that hybrid working, that working from home, we know it's probably going to be a thing for a lot of them. So it actually gives them a taste of that as well. Okay, so we're into the summer term. The time is whipping by. Work experience dates are the 15th, 16th and 17th of June. On the 18th of June, we will host one of our progress review days for year 12. And then on the 19th of June, I take everybody off timetable still, and I do a massive workshop day where they start prepping their CVs, their personal statements, and they work in groups. And again, that is a really, really good day for getting their Unifrog accounts up to date. In the summer term, most of their tutorial program, their Future Ready program, we call it MV, is going to be focusing on this planning. They'll set up their UCAS account, they'll set up their LinkedIn profile. Nothing stopping them doing those before, although UCAS isn't open for them yet, but nothing stopping them setting that up already. I think some year 12s told me they've already got a LinkedIn. That is impressive. They will really start to think about what they can do over their summer holidays. Might they even get some paid work experience? Are they topping up their work experience? But the summer term is a great time for year 12s to think, now what have I got to do before I come back in the autumn to really hit the ground running? And one of the highlights for us is we host an MV alumni event, which is a networking event. One of the top behaviours that the world of work is looking for in young people at the minute is being able to communicate with strangers, being able to network. I was so impressed today that some year 12s could come straight up to Megan after her talk, introduce themselves, say what they were interested in, and start to chat to her. And I just thought, yeah, you're the ones that are going to be highly employable because you've already got those skills. Now, not everybody can do it. So I really want to teach them how to network, how to build contacts. And who better than with the students that used to come to MV? So that is a lovely event. And yeah, really excited that our former students still want to come back and help. So I had about 50 come last year, and it's just an incredible day. And if you're on LinkedIn, feel free to link with me or MV, and you can see pictures of that for yourself, or on our Instagram account. Summer term's a big time where the open days start as well. It's great fun going around and visiting these universities. You might go with them, they might go on their own. We will allow odd college days if they can't get to the ones at the weekend, so they can ask my permission, and I can authorise that for them. But that's a great time to start doing that, and then some of them continue into the autumn. And we're in the autumn. We're a year ahead now. And I will kick off the autumn term by doing another webinar with you all about the UCAS timeline. In fact, I might shift that to the summer term this year. I think it's better timing so you can help over the summer. But basically, I'll do another much shorter than tonight. And I'm not really going to give you a lot of detail on this now, but I want you to just feel reassured that we're going to support them. We're going to write a reference for them. We're going to help them know how to apply to university. I'm then going to do an apprenticeship workshop. It's actually in November this year, but that's with the big apprenticeship service, and CV support is on hand all the time for them. They're going to start to apply. And if they're interested in Oxbridge medicine, vet med, or dentistry, they will have applied by now, and they'll be starting to get offers and interviews. And some of the top degree apprenticeships, I've got a student today that's told me she's applied for 3 degree apprenticeships already. So look, this is this time next year, it's full on. It's not tricky. She told me one of them took her 6 hours to do, and I'm thinking, yikes, they've got all that study to do. I just, yeah, enormous pressure, but we will try to support them as much as we can. Then year 13 into the spring term, lots of support for apprenticeships, lots of support for gap year. The UCAS deadline, it's actually mid-January, they've shifted it to, will come. I'll give you advice on student finance for parents. I'll give you advice on interviews. And really, students then have to decide which uni they want to go to. And they apply to 5, and then they only get to firm one of them, and then they get one to be a backup, which is called an insurance. And they probably go off to the universities again to try and decide which one they want as their firm and insurance. They're called applicant days. Okay, so obviously this is a bit further away in the future now. Summer term, they'll be doing their A levels, obviously. They'll be doing their exams. There'll be a deadline to fill in the finance. That's them that applies, and it then sends a link to you, a bit like the placement. Booking their accommodation, I kind of put that bullet point in there, doing their exams. Lots and lots of support still for the apprenticeships. I really think that these students are under pressure because some of them are still coming out at that stage. They go and sit in an A-level exam, and then ping, out gets released an apprenticeship as they walk out of that exam, and then they're starting to do those, hence helping some who are on a gap year. And then, it's the summer holidays. They've left MV, they get their results, they start university. And I can't believe that I've typed into this to 2028, but I will keep supporting them for that year after they leave. And they can keep hold of their Unifrog account until they're 25, as long as they've ticked today when they've set up their account to keep in touch with MV, because then it keeps them linked to MV and keeps their account. Right, so I've kept to my timings. I wanted to leave 10 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, I'm sorry I've spoken so quickly. I can't think of a better way other than go and listen to the recording for things that you might have missed me saying. But I am going to answer any questions that you might be wanting to ask at this point. I'll take my slides off. So if anybody wanted to ask any questions, I'm more than willing to answer that. Otherwise, please feel free to leave and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. But I hope that's been helpful. You will get the slides and you will get the link for your Unifrog account, and I will be sending you out more information about work experience before Christmas. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for your comment. Thanks, folks. Thank you. Enjoy your evenings.